So today we'll be starting the new module, which is module number 3, and we'll be talking about LEDs. So this module basically consists of a special type of LED called as nitride LEDs. So we'll be discussing about nitride LEDs in the next class. So in this class, we'll be discussing about the basics of LEDs. And the final section of this module is regarding white LEDs. So that will be subsequent to the next class. Okay. So So in this module, basically the outcome of this module should be that you should understand the working of different types of LEDs and also some of its constructions, understand the different LED parameters, and you should be able to do some basic problems. Okay. So in this lecture, we are going to look at the basics of LEDs. Okay. So just to recap, I think we have studied in our lecture number 3 or 4 that the rate or the recombination rate is equal to the excess carrier delta n divided by the excess carrier lifetime. So, okay, so this delta n is the excess carriers and this tau is the excess carrier lifetime. We also saw that 1 by the excess carrier lifetime, which is the 1 by total excess carrier lifetime, is 1 by the radiative carrier lifetime plus 1 by the non-radiative carrier lifetime. Okay, and also we found out something called as a quantum efficiency or radiative recombination efficiency, eta I is equal to tau by tau r. So I think I might have noted as a tau total or something like that. Okay, and we also said that the power generated, the optical power generated, is equal to eta I into I by E into H. This also we have seen, where actually this I by E is, you can say it as the number of electrons recombined approximately. So basically the number of, for each electron recombination there is a photon emitted. So the number of photons emitted is equal to the number of electrons recombined, and each photon carries h nu of energy. So the total power generated is the efficiency multiplied by the total energy of all the photons. So that we have seen in our last class, or maybe at the beginning of the our classes. Okay, so this is just to recap. Now coming back to LED, for our LEDs, we have a normal PN junction. Okay, there's a P-type semiconductor here, there is an N-type semiconductor here. Okay, and you might have studied in your SST that once this junction is formed, there is a small depletion layer. And the light emitted will be from this junction or this depletion layer. Now, how is light emitted? What happens is you have the minority carriers which is crossing to the other junction, or you can say if you have a metal contact like this over the semiconductor, and if you supply a forward bias current, this is positive, this is negative, this is I. So if you, when this I is supplied in forward bias, then it will push the holes towards the junction in the P side and push the electrons in the N side towards the depletion region. Now finally, the holes and electrons will combine in the depletion region and it will emit the LED. Okay. So this is a very basic LED. So this, you can say, this is something called as a homojunction LED. But the problem here is, although it is easy to say, okay, this is happening, that there is a combination and you get the light, but it is not always that much easy. The light emitted will suffer a lot of losses. Okay, so losses will be there of the light emitted. Means the light emitted from the semiconductor will not be completely available to the outside environment, or you cannot take out the complete light emitted from the PN junction, and there will be losses. For example, the light emitted can be reabsorbed. We'll see in detail what this is. Fine. That means the semiconductor itself can reabsorb the light, and it can trigger an electron jumping from valence band to conduction band. Or there can be a reflection. Semiconductor itself can reflect the light back to the semiconductor instead of letting the light outside to the air. Or there can be total internal reflection. It will not allow the light to go out. That means it is a total internal reflection. All these parameters are there in the losses. So we'll see each one of them. Okay. So basically what I intend to say is there is another efficiency term called as eta E, which is called as extraction efficiency. Okay, which actually tells you how much amount of light or photon produced is available outside. Outside means where you can see. So if you see the light, that means it is available outside. Okay, this is called as a extraction efficiency. And the net output power, optical power, electrical power, everything, net output power is equal to the extraction efficiency into the generated optical power. Okay, and this can be written as, so I can substitute this here. So this is equal to eta I by h, and we combine eta E and eta I as a single efficiency term, and we write this as something called as an sorry, external efficiency, eta ext. This is called as external efficiency. So we have three types of efficiencies. First one is eta I, it is the radiative recombination efficiency, eta E, which is the extraction efficiency, and eta external, which is the external efficiency. So the external efficiency will determine how much amount of light produced inside the semiconductor is available for you. You can modify this equation in a bit more convenient way. So I can write this as eta ext. Nu is C by lambda. So I can write H into C divided by E into I by lambda. This is actually a constant because E is the charge, electrical charge. C is velocity of light, H is Planck's constant, and this value, if you calculate, it is around 1.24. Okay, so I can write P out is equal to eta external efficiency multiplied by 1.24 divided by lambda into I. This is the net output power you will get from a PN junction LED who is giving out a light of wavelength lambda and an external efficiency eta external. And you see one thing here, that the power output is proportional to I. And what is I? I is the current that you supply. So if you supply more current, that means the power output is more, which means you will get more light. Okay, so if you draw a graph, okay, with this as I and this as power out, you will see it's a straight line, but after some time it will get saturated, and there are reasons for why it is getting saturated, etc. Okay, so this is the net power output from an LED. Okay. Now that's very basic things about LED. LEDs can be classified into two. The first one is called as surface LED or SLED, and the second one is called as edge emitting LED. Okay, so this is ELED. So first is surface emitting LED, the second one is edge emitting LED. Okay, before we move into the different or explain different types of LED, let's look at the losses once again. Okay, so we said that you have the PN junction. Okay, there's a P-type semiconductor, there's an N-type semiconductor, and then there's a metallic contact here so that you can connect it to some kind of a source which will supply the current. Okay, and remember, this is a homojunction LED. Okay, so if you draw the band diagram of this, you see that since a external field is supplied, the band will be tilted. So there is a P region and there is a N region. So there is a P region, N region, and this is basically the depletion region. Okay, and you have the charge carriers all through your band. Okay, so there are charge carriers and at P side and also at N side. Now, when you supply the current, basically the charge carriers will move down in the depletion region. It will combine with, or the electrons will move down from conduction band to valence band. It will combine with the holes and it will generate light. Remember, the light emitted from the LED is not monochromatic. Like it will have different phase. It will be emitted in different directions. While that of laser, you will be emitting light always in the same direction. Okay. And it is possible that the light sometimes emitted might trigger an electron in some other part of the PN junction or the PN or N region to move to the conduction band, which means this light will get absorbed. So there is no light output from the semiconductor to the outside user because it is getting absorbed by the PN junction itself. So the first loss, so we are talking about basically the losses, and the first loss is because of reabsorption. So the light emitted is reabsorbed outside the active region. Which is the active region? So this is the active region, which is basically our depletion part, where the activity is happening. That is the active region. So one major loss is because of the light absorption. Now, the second loss that we said earlier is because of reflection. Let's explain why that is. Okay. So in the PN junction, you see this is a semiconductor. Okay. And all materials have something called as a refractive index. Okay. So the PN junction will have a refractive index, let's say NR1. Now outside the PN junction is air. Okay. So let me write in a different color. So this is air and this is a semiconductor. And it has some refractive index NR2. So we have studied in electromagnetic theory that if there are two mediums with different refractive indexes, the light which is incident on the boundary, some part of the light will get reflected and some part will get transmitted. Okay. So if you draw it in like this, so this is a medium. Okay. Now the light is coming like this. So some part of this will get reflected and some part will get transmitted. Okay. So we also know that, so this is NR1 and NR2. The quantity which will define how much of the light which will get reflected is the reflection coefficient R, which is N1 cos theta 1 minus N2 cos theta 2 by N1 cos theta 1 plus N2 cos theta 2. This is for one particular polarization. So this is the amplitude of how much percentage of light. So how much energy of the light R is basically mod R square. So this is amount of energy reflected. So just to give you a small numerical value, assume that the light is incident normally. Assume. So some part of the light will get reflected and some part will get transmitted. The reflection coefficient for normal incidence is R is equal to N1 minus N2 by N1 plus N2. For semiconductor, the NR1 is approximately around 3.6. Okay. And NR2, which is the refractive index of air, is 1.0. So if you calculate R by substituting the values, you will get something around 0.32. Means that 32 percentage of light incident is reflected. We want all the light incident to be available to the air so that we can see the light. But you see that 32% of the light incident is reflected. That means we'll get only the rest of 68% to the outside. So this much is the loss. 32% is the loss if you have a semiconductor air interface and the semiconductor will have refractive index 3.6. So the refractive index, if it goes higher and higher, again, the reflection will increase, the loss will increase. So this is basically the reflection loss. The third loss is total internal reflection. Okay. What do you mean by that? So if you have a boundary like this, okay, and if the light is incident at some angle, it might come back some angle, and it is possible that all the light incident will be coming back to a semiconductor if the angle theta is greater than theta c, which is called as the critical angle. Okay, so theta c, the value is given as sine inverse NR2 by NR1. Okay, and if you substitute the, just for numerical calculation, if you substitute the value, you see that theta c is sine inverse 1.0 by 3.6 is approximately 16 degree. That means all the light which is incident above 16 degree will get totally internally reflected. Only the light which is incident less than 60 degree, 16 degree will get reflected. Sorry, it will get transmitted. All the light will get reflected. All other light will get reflected. Remember, we want to have maximum transmission so that we'll be able to get the light at the air interface. So this is a major problem. Okay, and all these losses will make my eta E, which is extraction efficiency, low. The extraction efficiency typical value is around 0.2 to 0.3, which is like 30% or 20%, which means if there are 100 photons which is being generated in the PN junction, only 20 photons will come out. The light will see. Okay. Now, how to reduce this loss? Okay. Remember, we have seen that this is a homojunction LED. Okay. And what is the solution for this? The answer is we'll go for double heterostructure. Okay. So the solution that was proposed is that let's have a double heterostructure LED. So in that case, my LED looks something like this. The first layer, it's an N-type aluminum gallium arsenide. Okay, so aluminum 0.3, gallium 0.7. The second one is our active region. So this is our active region. And this can be aluminum gallium arsenide with different compositions. Aluminum 0.1, gallium 0.9 arsenide. And this is our active region. Okay. The third one is a P-type aluminum gallium arsenide with composition 0.3 and 0.7. And the fourth one is a P plus gallium arsenide. And finally, you will have metallic contacts. Okay, so this is metallic contact. And there is a small space between this metallic contact, which will be filled with a dielectric. So this is actually a dielectric window. Okay. At the bottom, this is actually silicon dioxide. It's actually a blocking layer. And finally, it will also have a metallic contact. The substrate can be N-type gallium arsenide. Okay. Now the whole width of this is something around 60 micron, fine. And wherever there is metallic contact or silicon dioxide, the light cannot come out. Okay, this is actually a cross section of the semiconductor. Basically, what I mean by cross section is that let's say this is your semiconductor. Okay, and if you try to cut it something around here, like this. Okay, if you cut it like this, so that is what you are seeing here. So this is your semiconductor. If you cut it here, whatever you get after cutting it from here, if you look from here, that is what you are seeing in this diagram. Okay. Now, the thing to be noted here is the light comes out of only through the dielectric window, and all other layers will block it, except maybe at the sides of the active region. Okay, and we will be supplying current through the metallic contact. So there will be a positive here, and there will be a negative here, and the current will not flow through the dielectric. So basically, the current flows like this, like a funnel. Okay. So wherever there is a metallic contact, the current flows through that, and it will not flow through the dielectric window. Okay? So whatever recombination is happening is in the active region, and the light emitted will go in all directions. So it will come through the metallic window, sorry, dielectric window. It will also come out like this, but it will be blocked by the metallic contact. And it will also come down, but it will be blocked by the substrate and the silicon dioxide layer. Okay, so it will go all the directions. Okay, but only the light in which there is a dielectric window, it will come out. Now, what is the advantage of this structure? This is actually a double heterostructure. So for double heterostructure, if you look at the band diagram, it will be something like this. Okay, so this is along the direction X, and this is energy. So the first one, the first band gap is because of aluminum 0.3, gallium 0.7 arsenide. This is the higher band gap. And the lower band gap is because of aluminum 0.1, gallium 0.9 arsenide. Okay. Now when you inject current, then the electrons will come into this well. So there will be a huge amount of electrons which will be confined inside the well because it needs a higher potential to come out of the well. Similarly, there will be a good amount of holes at the valence band, although there are some amount in the aluminum gallium arsenide structure. Okay, and the electrons will come down using spontaneous emission, recombine, and it will generate the light. The light generated, so there's a light generated like this. When it moves along this aluminum gallium arsenide with 0.3, 0.7 composition, it sees a higher band gap like this. Remember, this light emitted has, let's say this is Eg1, and this is Eg2. This has Eg1 is equal to h nu. That much is the frequency, that much is energy. But Eg1 is less than Eg2. Implies with light energy h nu, it is not possible to transit the electron in aluminum gallium arsenide to conduction band. Like the electron in aluminum gallium arsenide with 0.3, 0.7 combustion cannot absorb this light and move to higher band. The reason being it has higher band gap, which needs higher energy. So there will be no absorption. So because of this double heterostructure, there will not be any absorption in the semiconductor. Remember one of the laws that we said in the SOMO junction LED was that it will be absorbed by the semiconductor. But here there will not be any absorption. So the first point is no absorption. The second point is there is something called as a carrier confinement. What do you mean by that? Because of the quantum well, when the current is given to the PN junction or the heterostructure, the electrons will move into the well and it will stay in that well because it needs a high energy to come out of the well, which is around this much, which is very high. Similarly, the holes will also move to the high energy level. So now the carriers are confined inside that structure of the well, and because of which it can easily jump to the valence band and combine with the holes, which will produce more light. This is called as carrier confinement, where it is confined inside the well. And the third one is called as optical confinement. This we have already seen all these terms, but still, optical confinement. To explain this, we should understand, or there is a general principle that higher the band gap, implies higher the refractive index. This is a general principle. Okay. So if you have higher band gap semiconductor, your refractive index will also be very high. Okay. So in this case, if you look at the structure, you have this active region here, whose band gap is very less, which is Eg1, and then you have an outside region whose band gap is Eg2, means it has higher band gap. That means this band gap N1, and there is a band gap N2, and you know that N2 is less than N1 because N2 has a lower band gap and N1 has a higher band gap. So active region is the one which is actually this one. This is the active region, and this is the outside region, the active, which has higher band gap. So what happens is the possibility of total internal reflection is very high. So the light emitted will come like this, strike the boundary, this comes back and moves along this structure and comes out of the activity like this. Similarly, it can come out from this side. So it will be totally internally reflected. Okay, this is something like a waveguide. Although this doesn't have too much of advantage for LEDs, but if you want to direct the LED to any particular direction, this is a useful feature. Okay, so using this features, because of this different characteristics of double heterojunction, normally the LEDs that we use are always of double heterojunction type. Like we will not be using direct PN junction. We will be using any combination of heterojunctions. For example, this is aluminum gallium arsenide. There can be indium gallium nitride. Also, there can be aluminum gallium nitride, or you can use a phosphide. So all this possible combination it will come. So this gives you an idea of uh, why we are using a double heterostructure. And so the next type of LED is the S LED. So I'll just draw the structure. So in this structure, you have P, there's an active layer, and so this is the active layer, and finally there is an contact, so metal contact. So this is the metal contact. At the bottom also there is a metal contact. Okay, and so this can be aluminum gallium arsenide, aluminum gallium arsenide. This can be P, this can be N. Let's say N plus gallium arsenide substrate. Okay, so here if you look, so this is the metal contact in the top and the bottom. You can give current through this. So this is positive, this is negative. And if you see this, the metal contact is all over the body. Okay, so whatever light emitted from this active region will be absorbed if it goes up or down. So the only the light which is coming out is through the sides. Okay, so this is called as, it's not SLED, this is called as edge LED, edge emitting LED. Okay, so previously we saw in surface LED, the light will come out to the top. It will not come out to the bottom, it will come out to the top, and top is preferred. But in SE LED, the light will not come out through the top, it will come out only through the sides. This is called as an ELED. Okay. Now, apart from SLED, the structure, we need to look at one more structure after the LED fabrication. Okay, so if you have seen an LED, you see that there is a structure like this. Okay, the LED will be enclosed in a structure like this, and then there's a small strip. Okay, and then there is the contacts. Okay, this structure is called as dielectric encapsulation. Basically, there's some kind of a dielectric inside this structure, and this is your semiconductor chip or the LED chip. These are your electrodes. Okay, the dielectric encapsulation will have NR, the refractive index approximately 1.6. So what are the use of this dielectric encapsulation? The first one obviously is to protect the semiconductor chip. This you might have seen that even if you put it down the LED or just crash it, nothing will happen. The dielectric encapsulation will protect the LED. Unless you pull out the diodes or the electrodes, it doesn't have any problem. Okay. The second one is to reduce the reflection. Why? So if you have this chip directly exposed to air, so this chip have the refractive index approximately 3.6. There have refractive index approximately 1.0. We see that the reflection is about 32%. It is very high. Instead, what we did in this encapsulation is, along with the chip, we have a dielectric, and after that, we have the encapsulation. Okay. The dielectric will have the NR approximately equal to 0.6, and this dielectric is contact with air, which is 1.0. The semiconductor will have 3.6. So the light emitted will be passing through three different layers. The first, it will pass through the semiconductor, then it will pass through the dielectric, and then it will reach the air. Okay, so basically this is NR equal to 3.6, this is NR equal to 1.6, and the last is NR equal to 1.0. So what's the advantage of this? So the final reflectivity is equal to the combination of the product of reflectivity of each of the layers. Okay, so since the NR value of this is high, means the reflectivity is low, and once the light goes from NR equal 1.6 to 1.0, again the reflectivity is low because the difference of the reflectivity is very less, because of which you will get approximately around 82% of, sorry, transmittivity. So you will get around 82% of transmission. Okay, so reflectivity will be around like 18% or something. So the dielectric encapsulation helps us to protect the chip. Along with, it will also help us in reducing the reflection. Okay, so this is a very basic structure, basics of LEDs. We look at the structure and we look at what is that dielectric encapsulation, etc., etc. Okay, fine. So I think we'll stop it here. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me, or else we'll call it a day. So please mark your attendance also in the chat. So once you are marked, I think you are free to go. Okay. So thank you for hearing the lecture.